Hi, and welcome back to today's Daily Chronicle. Today is Thursday, October 23rd, 2025. The federal government is still shut down. Here's what that means across the country. It's day 22 of the federal government shutdown, and Republicans and Democrats appear no closer to an agreement to end it. Without a fix, many federal employees will not be getting paid this Friday. The first full paycheck they'll miss as a result of the shutdown. By law, federal workers are supposed to get back pay once the shutdown ends. But the White House has tried to cast doubt on that. Meanwhile, President Trump has tied the shutdown to his overall goal of shrinking the size of the government, laying off workers en masse while it continues and promising more, while specifically targeting what he calls Democrat programs. Why did the federal government shut down? A partisan agreement over if and when lawmakers need to act to extend subsidies for the Affordable Care Act marketplace led to the current shutdown. Some 24 million people who don't have insurance through their jobs or a public program like Medicaid use the system through via health plans. Prominent Republican lawmakers have claimed the Democrats are linking to provide tax dollars to help pay for the health care of undocumented immigrants. That is not true. Democrats in the Senate refused to vote for a Republican short-term funding bill that passed the House but did not include the extension of the health care tax credits. Democrats are also hoping to appeal cuts to health care programs that were put in place as part of the GOP spending and tax bill that passed over the summer. NPR's Deirdre Walsh reports that some Democrats say November 1st could be a key date in talks to loosen the current gridlock. That date marks the beginning of open enrollment for people getting coverage through the ACA, when most states will send notices to subscribers laying out the cost of coverage without subsidies. In Vermont, where notices started going out on October 15th, for example, some families were facing increases of $25,000, according to Senator Peter Welch. Will the military get paid on October 29th? The Trump administration earlier this month found unused research and development funds to pay active military members. According to a Pentagon official not authorized to speak publicly, so they didn't miss a full paycheck, but it only covered one pay cycle. That was on October 15th. Troops get paid every other Wednesday. Military families are already seeking additional assistance from food banks and other groups to help with paying bills. Are government workers being laid off during the shutdown? The Trump administration has been following on threats to further slash the size of the government during the shutdown, seeking to lay off relatively 4,000 workers earlier this month. Some workers are fighting back in court. A judge overseeing the case issued a temporary restraining order directing the Trump administration to pause reduction in force efforts that affect certain unionized workers. What about WIC and SNAP benefits? Tens of millions of people are at risk of losing food and nutrition aid if the shutdown continues into November. That includes nearly 42 million who rely on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, previously known as food stamps. Their debit-like cards were funded a month in advance through October. But the Trump administration has warned the program will run out of money November 1st. In a letter dated on October 10th, the USDA told state agencies to hold off on distributing the November benefits until further notice. Because of insufficient funds, the left-leaning Center on Budget and Policy Priorities has called on agencies to shift money from its contingency fund and other places to keep SNAP at least partially funded. Meanwhile, the Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, WIC, which helps 7 million mothers and young children, was initially slated to lose funding after only a couple weeks. The Trump administration shifted $300 million in tariff revenue to keep it afloat, but the National WIC Association says the emergency funding will only last through October. It's calling for an additional $300 million to keep WIC operating for a couple more weeks. Some states could step in to help fill the gap, depending on their resources. What about school lunches? Some state agencies say they may not have enough funds to reimburse schools providing free and low-cost meals. Deanne Pratt-Heavner, a spokesperson for the School Nutrition Association, says some agencies have told her organization they don't have the money to pay schools back for meals during the shutdown. There's a strong commitment on both sides of the aisle to make sure that kids have access to healthy meals at school. So we are hopeful that the administration and Congress will act before this becomes an issue. According to Pratt-Heavner, USDA released funds to regional offices for meals served in October, but some states report they have yet to receive any money, she said. Before the shutdown, USDA released a contingency plan outlining funding states could tap into to cover any gaps. A USDA spokesperson did not directly answer NPR when asked if the agency would advance funding to state agencies should the shutdown persist. For private flood insurance companies, the government shutdown is good for business. Among those feeling the pain of the government shutdown are people in coastal areas and other locations where they need flood insurance. The government-backed National Flood Insurance Program stopped writing new policies on October 1st and can't resume until it's reauthorized by Congress. That may force buyers to postpone or cancel home sales. Andy Caston, an insurance broker in Fort Lauderdale, says the shutdown is already having an impact in Florida, the nation's biggest flood insurance market. Many people who live on Florida's coasts are in high-risk flood zones where the mortgage lenders require flood coverage. Days before closing on the sale of a home this month, Caston says one of his customers discovered he would need flood insurance. Unfortunately, because of the shutdown, the $700 annual flood policy he expected to purchase from the government program was no longer available. We just had to write a private flood policy, and it ended up costing him $1,200 and change. So because we had to wait, he had to purchase the more expensive policy, says Caston. Private flood insurance has only been widely available since 2019, but now accounts for an increasing share of the residential and commercial market. For the industry, the government shutdown is an opportunity. John Dixon, the CEO of private insurance company Aon Edge, says, "We've seen an incredible increase in interest and activity. A great number of quotes coming in that we haven't before." The private flood market has grown rapidly over the last several years, in part because it can provide coverage higher than the $250,000 limit available through the National Flood Insurance Program. For people with homes or businesses in high-risk flood zones, policies from the government typically are cheaper than those from private insurers. But in areas without a high flood risk, private companies often have lower rates. Trevor Burgess is the CEO of Neptune, one of the largest private flood insurance companies. On October 1st, the day of the government shutdown, Neptune went public and began selling shares on the New York Stock Exchange. In an interview on CNBC, he said that by using artificial intelligence, his company can analyze the risk of individual properties. Your house can be specifically underwritten for its risk, he said. So we tell the truth to consumers. We say that it's $200 a year. It's pretty low risk. If we say it's $12,000, that's pretty high risk. And if we say no, you should move. The government-backed flood program, by contrast, rarely declines to offer coverage, though policies sometimes are very expensive. Neptune just released a study that proposes moving more customers from the government program to private insurance. It would allow customers currently with the National Flood Insurance Program to retain their policies. But for new customers, the federal program would become the insurer of last resort, providing coverage only to those unable to buy a policy on the private market. Amy Back, with the consumer group United Policyholders, says private companies play a valuable role in the market. But she worries about how accountable they will be to consumers, especially after a major disaster. As an example, she points to Superstorm Sandy. Months after the 2012 storm, complaints from the policyholders and pressure from elected officials forced the National Flood Insurance Program to reopen many claims. That's what you get with a government-backed program, she says. You get accountability, and you don't always get that in the private sector, unless you sue. Another problem with the growth of the private insurers, Back says, is that they cherry pick the least risky homes and businesses in an area. That leaves the government program with the highest costs and creates additional issues for a program that for years has operated in the red. I think it's just going to make a challenging situation worse, she says. After Florida, Louisiana is the state with the most homes and businesses receiving coverage from the federal flood program. Louisiana Insurance Commissioner Tim Temple says that the NFIP provides reasonably priced policies for people who work in fishing, oil, and gas, and the state's other coastal industries. He says, it's imperative that we have a functioning and affordable national flood insurance program. And I don't think private industry can come in and be the answer to all those folks. Temple says the National Flood Insurance Program needs to be not just reauthorized but overhauled so that it keeps flood insurance affordable over the long term. This nation has the fastest rising rate of cancer cases and deaths in the world. A cloud of smog hovers above Lebanon's capital, Beirut, on August 14, 2025. Air pollution from diesel generators and smoky tailpipes are among the reasons that cancer is surging in Lebanon. Ali Mokdad stands in the heart of Beirut. Cars and trucks and motorcycles rumble everywhere. If you look at a car passing by, you see smoke coming out of it. That's illegal in Lebanon. But nobody enforces it, says Mokda, the Chief Strategy Officer of Population Health at the University of Washington. As a result, Beirut has terrible air quality and is often submerged under a blanket of exhaust. And not just in big cities, vehicles belch pollution across the country. It's one reason that cancer is surging in Lebanon. Mokdad co-authored a global survey that revealed that the tiny nation in the Mediterranean is experiencing the fastest increase in cancer incidence and mortality anywhere in the world. According to the study published in The Lancet, the frequency of new cancer cases in Lebanon has increased by an astounding 162% from 1990 to 2023, with cancer-related deaths increasing by 80% over that same period. In 2023, for every 100,000 people in the country, there were 233.5 new cancer cases. The news is sobering elsewhere too. The survey predicts that cancer cases and cancer deaths will continue to rise worldwide. Through at least 2050, especially in low and middle income countries. Still Lebanon has reason to be especially alarmed. What's the dramatic rise? What's behind the dramatic rise in cancer in Lebanon? Mokdad grew up in Lebanon before moving abroad almost 40 years ago. For him, like many here, the disease is personal. I'm losing cousins, he says. I'm scared. I'm losing them at a very young age. It's not only death, it's also diseases. They have so many health problems. Ali Mokdad co-authored a global survey which revealed that out of all the countries in the world, Lebanon is experiencing the fastest increase in cancer incidence and mortality. There are various reasons why cancer is surging in Lebanon. A big one is air pollution from both vehicles and diesel fuel generators that many homes and businesses use due to unreliable state electricity. In addition, we overused chemicals for our agriculture, says Mokdad. Some of these compounds, along with sewage, ends up in certain rivers. People don't drink it, but they wash their tabbouleh and their fattoush with it. They're consuming this. By far the biggest risk factor, however, is smoking. There's no more taboo about smoking, Mokdad says. Everybody smokes. Kids smoke in front of their parents. Yesterday I went with some of friends for dinner. You come home, you stink of tobacco. It's gone to a point where Mokdad keeps a set of clothes in Lebanon that he only wears there. There are no public health campaigns warning against the dangers of smoking or secondhand smoke. Instead, Mokdad says the government is actually in the business of buying and selling tobacco. The inevitable result is that lung cancer rates have jumped nationwide. In addition, leukemia and pancreatic and liver cancers have risen. The increases in prostate, colon, and breast cancers are all preventable through early screening and detection. The issue, says Mokdad, is that although screening is available, most people don't know to seek it out. Health education is a problem, he explains. If you caught cancer earlier, people wouldn't have to die. The global survey on cancer and Lebanon's troubling trends with the disease caught the attention of members of the Lebanese parliament. It's why they invited Mokdad to come talk to lawmakers and experts about his findings. Change will be a journey, a slow one at that. Earlier this month, Mokdad traveled to Beirut for the meeting, which was held inside one of parliament buildings. After walking through the results of the study and describing the peril that cancer poses, Mokdad suggested to the officials that Lebanon could improve its health screening, ban smoking in public spaces, and launch a set of aggressive anti-tobacco ads. By way of example, he pointed to a public health campaign launched by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in the U.S. a decade ago, when the CDC and other researchers say prevented 129,100 early deaths between 2012 and 2018. Ali Maghdad briefs lawmakers about his report, which shows how serious the frequency of cancer is in Lebanon. He tells lawmakers the country needs to improve its health screening, ban smoking in public spaces, and launch an aggressive anti-tobacco campaign. Many people in the parliament said, "I'm not surprised with this finding, and my question, what are you doing about it?" Inaya Ezzedine is a member of parliament and a physician who ran the proceedings. She explains that any kind of government response will take time. It's a journey, she says. It's not something that we can implement overnight because it has to do a lot with sectors. We have to work hard toward this political will. A committee will be formed to examine the data and determine which laws will need enacting or strengthening to address the problem. One of the attendees, Iman Nuwalhid, a professor of public health at the American University of Beirut, believes that individuals should take responsibility too. We're accountable to making our country cleaner, reduce pollution, improve the environment, he says. Of course, the government plays a bigger role, but we have a big responsibility. Local communities again should push in that direction. Maghdad argues that the time is now for the government to act and support people in making the right decisions about their health. I know Lebanese have a lot to deal with, a lot of things, he says, but cancer is killing. Many people in the parliament said, "I'm not surprised with this finding, and my question, what are you doing about it? Why have you been waiting so long to take action?" A couple blocks from the building where the meeting was held, a 57-year-old mom, Naja Morda, is smoking. Naja Morda, 57, on a lunch break with her son, Marwan Bizri. Morda is a smoker and knows it's bad for her, but she hasn't been able to kick the habit. She says she's recently lost several loved ones to cancer: her mother, her sister, and a close friend. It's very dangerous, and I'm afraid of it, she says. Morda is hopeful that the government will do something, even while acknowledging that she shouldn't be smoking. She knows it's bad for her. She's tried to stop, but hasn't been able to kick the habit. Her son, Marwan Bizri, looks on. Lebanese people are dying because of cancer, he says. We're losing people we love.